Welcome back. Last lecture of this first week. It's great to see so many of you still. We have these always these discussion about is it a good idea to make the recordings of the lectures, and will that lead to students not coming to the lecture? So I'm really pleased to see that this is taken as an additional service, but that it still doesn't sort of destroy the personal contact that you have in these lectures. And so that, for me, that is very good news that I also use in these discussions, because I think it's an added argument to make these recordings of these lectures. That is good news for me, but I also think it's good news for you, because we might do this more often in the future, that we just record these lectures and put them online. It seems like a win-win situation to me. Another sort of organizational point I wanted to make is that although it feels like we've just sort of met yesterday, we are already almost a third through the course, at least in terms of the lectures. So these courses of 1 month, I really like them because it is very intensive, and I can really tell a story every day, and I can build on what I've talked about yesterday. I still remember what I said, and so I really like that for the lectures. But it has a consequence that problems that occur can have a huge impact if things go wrong. If you have 3 days where nobody knows what to do, then you've lost already a really significant amount of time to work on the course. So I have the request to you, all of you, please, if you have anything, any suggestion of how we can improve things, if there's anything of problems that occur, don't wait until you get the opportunity to write the bad comment in the evaluation sheet, because it won't help anybody now. Just send me an email if there's anything we should improve on the course. It needs to be done on the moment now. Let us know. We can always try to solve these problems, and if we can't solve them immediately, we can at least discuss them and try to alleviate the consequences of it. So this is really an open invitation to, whenever you think there is a problem that we should address, or whether there's anything what we can do easily to improve the course, let us know. Yeah? So I've just seen Jeffrey coming in, so sitting here in the first row. So he's the hero of the Schnapsengain engine, one of the two. He knows everything about it. So you'll probably meet him in one of the sessions in. Don't blush. You will probably meet him in one of the support sessions, because they also, Paul and Jeffrey, will also be the ones with whom you can make the appointments for if you have technical help, and probably also the people who will answer most of your technical problems if you post questions on the discussion board. Yeah. So here's the face to the name and there might already be people. I had some technical questions I referred to you, so maybe in the interval people can find you. The setup of the course is a bit sort of upside down, I have to say, because the intention of the course, because it's so short, is to allow you to work on the practical stuff very early. So I left quite a lot of the nice material and also of the fundamental material out of the introduction. So I've used terms and descriptions throughout the lectures without introducing them properly. So I've always talked about intelligent agents and environments and perfect information and dynamic and static and whatever, without introducing this properly. And if you look at the reader, and also if you look at the book from Russell and Norwig, the AI Bible, as I would call it, there is a very, very systematic way of approaching the field of intelligent systems and AI by introducing the notion of an intelligent and rational agent. And I haven't done that, I've skipped that, and I want to take the second half of this lectures to really go into depth a little bit more back into the the foundations of AI. The same happened with the several moments in the lecture where I said, okay, this is nice stuff, but I have to skip it because I want you to get to the essentials of the algorithms that you are working with. And now that we take the steps back, and I want to tell a little bit more about uninformed search, and I want to tell a little bit more about informed search. I want also to get into the issue of uncertainty in games with chance. So we've looked into games with partial observability, but now we also would like to look into games where you throw a dice. How can we play these kind of games? And at the end, I really want to look at the notion of an agent, and that will probably close the first week nicely. So now something should happen, but it doesn't. So here we go. So I will start with more on uninformed search. Remember that we had the abstract notion of a state space, so where we have practical problems that we can translate into some concrete, formalized, unambiguous notion on which we then can easily apply an algorithm. And the uninformed ones is simply systematic ways of going through all the options that you can achieve by going from one state through some action to another state. And we looked at the two classical and very simple approaches that you can take, namely look through the tree in a breadth-first way. And that means basically you start with the top node, you look at all the children, systematically all the children, and you check whether they satisfy your goal conditions. And then you look at all the children of your children and the children of the children of the children in the next level. So you basically build this tree by looking at the breadth of the tree. And I think the data structure that we used for it was a queue. Yeah. Okay. So if you use the data structure of a stack, then you do the depth-first search, and that basically allows you, in some cases, to find the solution easier. You have to lessen memory, but there's disadvantages. So these are generic methods, and we want to understand what they mean, what the consequences are of choosing specific methods over others. And the way we did that was to look at, and this is, I think, a very classical computer science approach, you look at generic properties of the algorithms. And these are usually the complexity of time. So how much time does it take to find a solution, or all the solutions, or the best solution, or whatever? It's the complexity in terms of space, memory. So how much memory do I need for my algorithm so that I can solve the problem? Third one is, do I find a solution all the time or not? And is it always the best solution that I find, or do I find the solution in the best possible way? So these are typical properties of analysis of algorithms that computer scientists should make their daily bread. You should understand how complex is my problem, how complex is the algorithm that I use, and you try to find a good match for both. And if we look at the breadth-first implementation of the algorithm of state space search, then we find that in principle it's a complete algorithm, so we always find the solution. It's an exponential algorithm in terms of time, so it depends on the depth of the solution, but you need to take the full breadth of the tree into account, and that can be depending on the branching factor b and the depth of the solution, and basically the complexity is in the order of b to the power of d plus 1. In terms of time, this is extremely complex, but worse is that this is the same in terms of space. And that basically means that you need to have enormous amounts of nodes that you have to keep in memory. In depth first, this is the same in principle for the time complexity, but the space complexity is better because you only need one branch in memory at the time. The price for this is that you're not complete anymore. So it can happen that you do not find a solution if you have, for example, cycles. So. So I said this is a sort of bad news. And in principle, it makes it, on the one hand, we have, of course, the arguments that we can use human information, we can use the heuristics, we can sort of order the state spaces that we visit in a way that is more promising. So we have a problem on the uninformed side, on the one side. But still, this is a huge problem, even if we have informed search. I don't know, yeah?
So in terms of depth first, in Schnapsen, the first 2 rounds of phase 2, depth first is usually better. Wouldn't it be optimal to then switch to a breadth first after the first 2 rounds?
So this was a very complex question about the application of breadth first and depth first for Schnapsen in phase 2, to which I have to admit that I can't give you an answer in this second. So I will think about it in the break and maybe come back to it and maybe not. So maybe I have to send an email. Another question is, did anybody read my rant in the announcement about complexity and about the combinatorial factors of the game that I sent yesterday night, how complex the game is? Yeah? I'm not sure about the real mathematics, but I think what was clear is that I was heavily underestimating the complexity of Schnapsen, because I think what it turned out was that, if I am correct, that we have in the order of 10 to the power of 18 different nodes that we have to search through if we really want to optimally find a solution. So basically, if you say we do a breadth first search, we need to take, in the worst case, maybe 10 to the power of 18 or 10 to the power of 20 even, I think it was, nodes in memory. You will understand that this won't work. I think there are not that many atoms in the universe. That is the sort of the boundaries we're looking at. It simply is impossible. Whereas if you think of the approach, if you use depth first search, the only thing we have to keep in memory is 20 moves, because we have 20 cards to be played. So there are 10 tricks of 2 cards. So we have a tree of depth 20. This is this m value. So we have a space complexity of only the breadth of the tree times the depth of 20. That's easy for a computer to implement. We have this memory on our daily laptops. It will take a decade or 2 to get to the solution, but that's a different problem. At least we can run our algorithms. Yeah. So, as I promised you, this was a problem in the 70s, 80s, whatever, that people thought we can't solve this. This is simply impossible. And then they came up with a very, very simple solution that I think is really a great example of how science can how simple science can be and how beautiful it can be if you really come up with a good solution. And the observation that this was based on is that if you look at a tree and you have a branching factor of, say, 5, yeah, then on the first level of search, you have 5 options. On the next one, you have 5. This would be 5 to the power of 2, 25. Is that correct? Yes, it's the branching factor by the depth. So we have 25. So here we have 5 to the power of 3. This is 125. Is that true? No, it's not true. It is, I think. Yeah. The core point that I want to make here, apart from that I can't really calculate in my head, is that you get here 25 nodes on this level, while you have on the level above, you have only 6 nodes. So basically, we have 4 times as many nodes in the lowest level as opposed to all the nodes that are above. And it gets worse. The lower you go, the more the sum of the top ones is smaller than the only level down there. So basically what people observed was that it does not make that much harm in terms of time consumption if I sort of forget what I've done before, the real harm of looking through all the nodes in a tree is looking at all the leaves and not what's above. So what they came up with was the algorithm of depth-first iterative deepening. And basically what you do is you limit the search to a certain depth. You say, I only look at 4 steps ahead. That's the first step of the algorithm. The second one comes in a minute. So you say, and on this tree of level 4, I do a depth-first search. I know that I can do depth first, and I do the full tree, so that will work. And I can't get into loops because I only do it for a limited depth. So I can't get into an infinite tree, an infinite branch. So the problem with if I cut off the depth of the tree is that I might lose out on a solution that comes the next step or 10 steps further in the depth of the tree. Yeah. So this algorithm, if I do a depth limited search, is not complete, as you can imagine. So the idea is to just iterate until you find a solution over these depth limited search where you do depth first search. So how does it work? Let me see whether I have. No, I don't have it open. So. So suppose we have this kind of tree where G is the goal condition, and there might be more stuff down here. Yeah, so there might be more stuff down here. Okay, G, H, whatever. Yeah? So now we want to find the goal in a sort of a mixture of breadth first, a mixture of going through the levels by purely depth first. So how do we do it? In the first step, we only look at a tree of size 1, depth 1, so 1 level. So what is the result of depth first search for this tree? Hey, we don't find a solution. Okay, we were not successful, but it's good. It was level 0. Now let's look at the subtree of length 1. So now we have the tree A, B, E. So what does depth first search do on this tree? What is the order of the node execution? Yeah?
Executes A to B and then.
Yeah? And it checks whether there's a solution or not. There is no solution. So, okay. Chain. Let's go on. So that was depth 1, that is depth 2. Let's try a tree of depth 3. So that's this tree now. I want to redraw it again. So what's the order of execution of depth first search? Shout. Help me. B, C, D, E, F, H. No solution found, yeah? Okay. So, yeah, chain. We throw everything away that we've already done. And now we go 1 level down again. So now we say, okay, let's now do this tree. So this is 3, this is 4. So what's the order of execution of the depth first search tree? Search is A, B, C, E, D, E, F, J, and we found the solution. Yeah? Okay, so if we had applied breadth first search, we would have done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 nodes. Yeah? That would have been breadth first search, 9 nodes. If we had done depth first search on the full tree, not the depth first iteration, we would have done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah? You're absolutely right. 7, yes. Good point. You would have done 7, unless you would have gone down in the tree far more. And now we've done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. So you see that the time complexity is rather bad, but each time, and that's the core thing, we only had very few elements in memory. So it can be shown, and I think I get to that in a minute here in the slides. So let me go more systematically back to the slides now. So iterative deepening is a general strategy that you can always apply to find the best depth limit L, because we go systematically, we add a level of the tree one by one. And it works very well with depth first search. So this is the example. We start with a limit of 0. We don't find a solution. We go one level down. We don't find a solution. We go one level down. Always depth first. And that's the key, that you do this depth first with backtracking until you have exhausted the entire tree, and you go down until you find a solution. Then even if this costs you a lot of more search, it is complete. Unless you have infinite amount of branches, which is a sort of special problem that we don't address here. Yeah? So you basically take care of the problem of these infinite paths that we otherwise could not have avoided. It has a time complexity that is in the same order of that we had with depth first search and breadth first search. So it is more, but it's the same order of magnitude. It's the same order of complexity, and that is very important. So it doesn't add, if you add a number of depth, it is not significantly slower. So if we have a simple depth limited approach, we always complete if the solution is within the depth limit, if we do depth first search. But if it's below, we can't find the solution. We can't guarantee that we find the solution. Whereas iterative deepening will just go on until it finds a solution, and it has all the good properties that you would like from an algorithm. Okay, that was all on depth first search. And this is basically the depth first iterative deepening works because you can show that the amount of nodes that are, when you add another level, that are significantly smaller than the amount of, bigger than the nodes that you have already visited in the level before. Another thing I've ignored so far is that in many of the cases, it's not very clear where you start in your search. So obviously, if you have a card game, you start with a full deck, given to two players get their cards, and you have to find a solution where one of the players win or not. But there are situations where this is not necessarily so clear. So one of the typical examples is a maze, which you can approach in two different ways. So this example of the maze is that you are in the position C3, and that you want to go to the position D3. So that is your goal position, and that is your starting position. And basically the transitions are, you can move from one step in the maze to some other place in the maze. And so from C3, you can go to E1, and we have sort of abbreviated here the steps. So this going to E1 is a walk via C2, D2, D1, E1. Yeah? So the transition is not a single move in the maze, but the transition is a path until you hit a wall. So here we have one transition to E1, and the other one is to B4, so it goes over up, and then you have to make a decision. And before you can make the decision to go to A4 and to go to C4, that's the two parts, until you have to make a decision again, and so forth. And that gives you this search tree, and all you have to do then is in your depth first or in your breadth first search to go from C3 to D3 via B4, C4, D4, and D3. And that's the solution. But obviously there is nothing sort of that stops you to think of how could I have gotten to my goal from my starting position. When I'm at my goal, what steps would I have to take so that I would get there? So basically, you turn the search direction around. So you start with D3 and you think, okay, from where would I have gotten to D3 efficiently? And that means D4. You have to be in D4, otherwise you can't get to D3. And in D4 you have two options, namely C4, B4, D3, and so forth. And then you turn around the search direction and you get another path, which might solve your problem easier, faster, or not. And to show you the difference between the two, I have a question. The first one is, this only works if you have a clear goal. If the goal is the same, so if you have one goal, or maybe two, one goal, and then you can start from this goal to go to your original position, to a starting position. In chess, for example, you don't have a unique starting position. There are millions and millions of winning chess positions. Same for Schnapsen. There are millions and millions of winning Schnapsen games positions. Yeah? But if you have a unique starting position and a unique goal condition, goal state, then it's something worth considering. And then the question is, which impact has the branching factor? And then the question comes from, if you have information about who's my father, I know my fathers, I know my children, I know the family history of the House of Orange, or Orange, whatever it's called. And then the question they have to answer is Matthew Hüntjes a descendant of Willem von Oranje? Something we always wanted to know. Absolutely, I know. I don't have an answer to that, but for the purpose of this, it's quite interesting. So what way do you think the search makes more sense? So, who knows it? What makes more sense? Starting from Matthew Hüntjes. Why?
We could check William von Oranje tree family, but it will be too wide to check for one person. So starting from him, we can check for his parents and his ancestors, check he is related to William von Oranje.
Okay, so I guess you couldn't have heard the answer, but it is the correct answer. That if you look at Matthew Hüntjes and you go up in the search tree from his direction, there are always two ancestors. Yes? Let me summarize the answers so that we can. Whereas if you go into history, the number of children that people had at the time of Willem Oranjes through the generations is far bigger than two. So it's usually three or more. So they had three or more children. So if you start out from...
But children died usually, so...
Sorry?
But you don't go deep because the children died anyway, so...
Not in the Netherlands, not in this idealized world. No, but it has been historically, I think, it has been proven that there is a sort of a branching factor of 3 if you go down in this example. And maybe not in the specific case of Willem van Oranje. I'm not aware of this part of Dutch history, I'm afraid. So, are there any Dutch persons in the room? Sorry, just joking. Sorry, you had a point?
Just it really depends on how far removed you are, which is better.
Yeah, so I mean, I think you get the general point of argument. We basically have, in history, we have a person, Willem van Oranje, and he has a number of children, and this one dies. Yeah, I don't know who it was. So it would have been great. So basically, we have a branching factor of 3. So basically, if you want to see whether Matti sits somewhere in here, you will have, I don't know how many generations this is removed, 15 generations or something like this probably. So we would have 3 to the power of 15. Whereas if we start, if this is the average, so it's the average branching factor. Whereas if we start from Matti, we can be sure, and there is no discussion about this, that he always will have 2 parents. So that's sort of historically, I think, less disputed. So we have a branching factor of 2. So we basically have a 2 to the power of 15. And if anybody could do me the favor and calculate 2 to the power of 15 and 3 to the power of 15, I'd be obliged, yes?
Actually, it might be more than 2 to the power of x. If it's not an ideal world, and for example, Matti has in certain cases not clearly known parents, but more like prospective parents.
Yes. So if you turn this into an imperfect information game, then you might be right. But let's not get down into this direction of. I'm sure. Anyway, let us stop this discussion at this point in time. So do I have numbers? What is the first numbers of 3 to the power of 15? Nobody with a calculator in this world, sure, huh? Say it again. 40 million plus, yeah? And 4. Sorry. 14 million plus, yeah? And this one? 32,000. Okay. So you see that there is a significant difference between looking down from this tree with a branch factor of 3 and looking up with a branch factor of 2. Yeah? And you can imagine that this takes, it's no time at today's computers, but this is obviously a blink of an eye and it's gone. And if you look at more realistic problems, then you will see that this really makes a big difference. And I believe even that I calculated it on 10 generations, and here already you see that it's a difference of more than an order of magnitude difference. And if you can imagine what kind of game we have, or what kind of problems we address in Go or in Schnapsen or these kind of things, then these considerations become incredibly important and incredibly interesting to do. So my time estimate was completely off. So I had my 25 minutes break now. And I didn't want to bother you with music now, like I did yesterday, but I wanted to bother you with art. And do we have any, there were 3 people in the room interested in modern music, modern contemporary classical music. Is there anybody interested in modern art? It's the same people, don't tell me, no, it's not all of them anyway. So this is a project that Gushti Iben, our own professor of evolutionary computing, did a long time ago, 15, 20 years ago. And that was basically to apply AI to create artworks that look like Mondrian and Escher. And he had an exhibition with these artworks a long time ago, as I said, in the Gemeentemuseum in Den Haag, so one of the most foremost museums in the Netherlands, where he presented his work that was created by AI along real Escher artworks. And basically the way they did it was partially this tool. So the tool created by some transitions from some algorithms that created these kind of forms and shapes. And there were some humans involved who told the program whether the result looked a little bit or like a work of Mondrian or not. And they did that via generations, and basically what the algorithm did was search, parallel hill climbing search. That was basically local search. That's what an evolutionary algorithm does. And basically they managed to produce, after some generations, an algorithm that created relatively credible artworks related similar to the work of Mondrian and of Escher. And again, we have the question, what does it mean for something to be an intelligent algorithm? So isn't producing art one of the defining elements of who we are, what we are as humans?
It depends on what you consider intelligence. There are basically two forms, know-how and know-it. Know-how and know-that. And know-that is knowledge of things, and know-how is knowledge of how to do things.
Okay, so there's the point of that is made that we need to know what the notion of intelligence we use. And we're going to go back to that in the second half of the lecture, in particular also in the third week. And that's obviously the question. But I think it creates interesting questions about also the nature of human beings. And so that's what I wanted to say about artwork. Is it okay if I take 5 more minutes before we start the break? So then I can give you something on the more on the informed search. And this is another one of the classical algorithms that you should know and that you have to know for the exam as well. And that's the A-star algorithm. And basically I take my word back, and I suggest we have a break now. We come back at 12, and then we come back with full new energy to talk about A-star. Yep? So see you at 12.